Hey, thank you for checking out the DDT Method Podcast. My name is Drew Donaldson, and I am your host. And today, I'm sitting down once again with Jay Campbell, talking all things performance enhancement on a cellular level, on a spiritual level, the best of the best when it comes to fat loss, muscle gain, and cutting-edge information in the peptide and biohacking worlds. Jay was one of my most requested guests, and the last time he was on the show, you guys absolutely loved the information that he gave you guys. Well, I've got 2 episodes with Jay Campbell coming up right now. We're starting with part 1, where we're diving into muscle building peptides and a whole myriad of other topics. And then next week, we'll be back again to discuss fat burning peptides. And you can just watch where that conversation branches off and goes. And we cover a ton of really cool stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the DDT Method Podcast with Jay Campbell. Hey guys, I hate commercials too, so I'm going to make this really, really quick. I just want to tell you about the DDT Method School Group. You see, social media has gotten really weird in recent years, and I keep getting red flagged or warned or blocked every time I mention anything that regards a milligram or a protocol or anything that seems like it's me giving you guys information on PEDs or anything related. Now, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor. This is for education purposes only, blah, 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 blah. But I want you to check out the DDT Method School Group, because in there, I can give you guys exclusive content, including protocols and in-depth profiles of all of your favorite PEDs and peptides, and I can give you guys the information that I can't give you on any other platform. That's the DDT Method School Group. Check the link out below. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the DDT Method Podcast. I am here again with somebody that needs absolutely no introduction, but it'd be weird if we just started talking out of nowhere, so quick introduction to Mr. Jay Campbell. Jay, over the past couple years, now, real quick sidebar, like Jay and I have known each other several years now, met through our mutual friend, Ben Pikulski at MI40.
Yeah, since 2019. Actually, that was 2018. Fuck.
It must have been, because 2019, because Ben was gone for a little while.
Yeah, he was in Canada. And he couldn't come back during COVID.
Yep. So it was before all of that. Then we managed to reconnect late last year. And then I attended the FOH live event, which was amazing. Made so many valuable contacts and learned so much. Such an amazing time out there. And Jay has immersed this like massive group of like-minded individuals and is so on the forefront of the longevity, biohacking, what's really become like the new evolution or the next step within the fitness industry. You guys all know this, so I don't need to go ramble about accolades. I did that last time, so if you haven't seen the last podcast with Jay, kind of go through the playlist, find that one. You can find all of the accomplishments and whatnot that I listed. Then you can go to Jay's site and everything like that, because I do want to jump into the brass tacks of business today, because there is so much to touch on. Jay and BioLongevity Labs have made so many leaps forward in the past several months. I want to touch on a lot of that stuff. But overall, I want this podcast to really be something where we can dive into the ultimate optimization of a human being. So I want to go over how to really do it all and to achieve everything and to be the biggest, the leanest, the strongest, the smartest, the fastest, the best recovery, the lowest biological age, because we're finally at a state or a time where we can actually begin to master all of these things. And not only do we have Jay to speak on his expertise within the field from the science side of things, but we have somebody that's, again, he's at the center of this massive group of people doing experiments, doing research, and all the practical evidence is literally flooding in daily. So this is really going to be an episode to take notes, write everything down. It might fit into what you're doing right now. It might fit into what you want to do later, but we're going to touch on everything. And the first thing that I want to dive into is going to be peptides for building muscle. And the reason I want to do that is because, Jay, you got to give me the rundown on Follistatin, because nobody's shutting up about Follistatin, and I want to get right into it. Like, what is Follistatin, and what makes this new Follistatin that you guys are working with different?
Well, first off, Follistatin has made me bigger. So I've been on Follistatin so as you know, there's 5 people in the world, besides the chemist, who's 6, that has actually been on our Follistatin, which is FLGR242. And it is a recombinant form of Follistatin. And I think a lot of your audience, a lot of people in the bodybuilding, biohacking space are familiar with Follistatin, the old formats of like 314, 344, 347. And all of those products, if you I have to actually caveat this, if you got a real version of them, they did work. The problem with those products is they had incredibly short half-lives. They were not recombinant. And if you got a good version, which again is rare because a lot of stuff sold in the underground community, as you know, is either fake or probably just not engineered to last very long, especially after it was like put in a vial and lyophilized, if it even was lyophilized. So you had to use it multiple times a day. You had to inject it like, localized into like the delt or the tricep or something like that to get bigger. And most guys, if you got it, would say, hey, I think I put on a pound or maybe a pound and a half, or maybe I added a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch in my delt or my tricep or my, right side of my bicep or something like that by injecting 3 or 4 times a day. The problems with those follistatins though also was they created debilitating delayed onset muscle soreness because the binder or whatever they had in that to extend the half-life, which was again super short, would just expand in the plasma and it would just cause horrific pain. It would literally, like, if you did it in your delt, it would be like somebody hit you with a baseball bat there. So it would be like really sore, horrible Charlie horse for 2 or 3 days. But fast forward to our version of follistatin, which again is FLGR242. And again, our chemist has extended the half-life to somewhere between 18 and 19 days. And it dramatically improves basically skeletal muscle, and it doesn't bind to activin. And if it binds to activin, it actually will, which is the negative effect of past versions of follistatin, potentially increase organ size or increase things that you don't want to grow, right? So again, our chemist is a genius. He's a very, very brilliant biochemical engineer, and he's engineered this so that it won't do that. It's not going to grow the aortic valve. It's not going to increase the size of your heart. It's just going to bind to androgen receptors. And if you obviously train and eat right and hormonally optimize and maybe throw in some anabolics or whatever with it, you're going to put on size. Now, I have been on this along with Brian Moscow, the Gorilla Chemist, along with, of course, our friend Matt Chrisman. Shout out to both of those guys. Another guy by the name of Bobby George, and then his cousin, who's a woman, because we wanted to do an experiment with her because she had an injury. And all of us have been on it. On Tuesday will be 8 weeks. And every single one of us, including the girl, have put on close to 10 pounds of skeletal mass. Now, Brian and Matt have done tests baseline, and they're also doing pre-novo stuff here coming up to really assess, to have real data. The girl, she did an MRI, and she also did an in-body, and she has put on, 12 pounds of skeletal muscle. Now, again, she's not a bodybuilder. She's also, I wouldn't even call her competitor fitness chick, but she's in really good shape. She's lean, and she'd suffered a serious knee injury from skiing downhill. And so he wanted to give it to her to see what kind of recovery and how fast it would accelerate her recovery. Now, obviously, she is also using BPC TB500 Cardilax and probably is hormonally optimized. I don't know. I can find out about that. But everyone is put on size. In the last 2 weeks for myself, I've noticed a lot more training intensity. And again, I put a picture on Instagram, but I have gone from normal walk around weight of about, you know what I look like, but 208 to 210 to 220. Like right now, I'm like 220, 221 pounds, probably even bigger because I just ate 2 days worth of fucking apple pie and Thanksgiving and whatever else feast that was left over in my house the last couple of days. But it's incredible. The other thing that it does that I think people need to understand is that it actually improves fat loss, because obviously when you're increasing skeletal muscle, it's burning fat, right? As your androgen receptors get upregulated, you build more muscle, and hence you also burn a little bit more fat. So another product that's going to be coming from BioLongevity Labs, hopefully in January, is going to be called Slim Assist. And Slim Assist is going to be a microdose of follistatin for women to take for one of two reasons, or one of two ways. One, to offset any kind of muscle loss or catabolism they get from using a GLP-1, which, as you know, is prevalent in the literature. It's prevalent everywhere. It's prevalent in the books the book that I'm writing right now called Metabolic Awakening, which is hopefully coming out in January, about how to use GLPs in the context of health and longevity. So I'm deep in the research on that, and I see it. It does cause muscle loss because people's lifestyles are not dialed in. And I think you know that, and we can get deeper in that. I don't want to rabbit hole, but follistatin is a wonder product. For now, the current version that we're selling that is actually already sold out, it sold out before Black Friday, is 2.5 milligrams a week, or one vial is 5 milligrams. So you have the option to inject it once every 2 weeks, which is what a lot of people do, or you can do what I'm doing, which is basically put in 1 cc or 1 ml of bacteriostatic water in the vial and inject half the vial every week. Now, Brian and Matt have been doing the same strategy, but they've been doing double the dose. So they've been taking 5 milligrams a week versus me taking 2.5 milligrams. I want to say Brian has probably put on the most muscle, but he's also been the one who's, I think, been the least amount of travel. And so he's been a little bit more dialed in with his diet and obviously his training and stuff like that. Whereas the rest of us have just been traveling like crazy. And so our diet has not been where it probably should be. But like I said, I mean, I definitely have put on somewhere between 7 and 9, maybe even 8 to 10 pounds of actual muscle. Like wherever I go now, the people that know me, family members, people that see me on a regular basis have all said to me, they're like, what are you doing? Like I saw my chiropractor on Monday this week and he was like, bro, he's like, how much weight have you put on? And I'm like, is it that noticeable? He's like, dude, you literally look like you're 8 to 10 pounds heavier. And I was like, that's exactly what I am. So I know people can see this. Obviously, it's still early. There's not enough people using it. We sold a shitload in the last week, but obviously it hasn't even been shipped yet because we're waiting on the first delivery or the first installment, which by the way, should be on Monday. So on Cyber Monday, we should be getting, actually it won't be, it will be, because it's not a holiday. It should be shipped to us on Monday. And so everyone who ordered should be getting their Clotho and their Follistatin, I want to say by the end of this coming week. So by December 5th or 6th, anyone who's ordered or pre-ordered should be getting their product shipped to them.
Awesome. And you made a really cool point too, that we all know how busy you are. And Brian, even with the ability to dial stuff in, he has a ton of stuff going on also.
Yes.
You know, Matt's busy. Matt's also recovering from a pretty severe quad tear that he managed to biohack his way to a fast recovery on.
Yep.
But there's all these little factors that are keeping you guys, just real life stuff, from being able to like really like train, eat to a meticulous degree and everything like that. You're still getting these results. What can we expect from somebody that's on like an incredibly strict training regimen, that's hormonally optimized, that might be running some other things alongside? Because I know you guys are all taking it in isolation.
Yep.
Does this do the floodgates open? Are there things you can stack it with? Do we need to run this by itself? Like, how far can we push this? Yeah, no, it's a great question. So this is actually something that I'm going to be revealing tomorrow night with Brian on my Sunday night live stream. So I'll just give it to you first. So this comes from our chemist a little bit too, but one thing that you want to do to really, let's say, improve the binding of the follistatin is to give it a thymosin beta. So obviously you can take like a microdose of thymosin beta 500 or TB 500. And a microdose, I would assume, is like, for a woman, 250 mics a day, to guys like us, 500, maybe 600 micrograms a day. But that's going to improve the binding. It's also going to expand plasma volume in the way that thymosin beta does. It will also obviously suppress, cytokines, cellular inflammation. So like if you're training really, really hard, which is, and part of how I'm going to answer your question, taking the thymosin beta with the follistatin is going to dramatically improve muscle building in theory. And I would assume that in practice, it does that too. Now, granted, none of us have been doing that because Mike, our chemist, gave us that about 10 days ago. And again, we've been traveling. I just got back from Mexico. So I just started taking myself thymosin beta on Tuesday. So I'm doing it like every other day. So I'm doing it like Tuesday, Thursday, and then I actually took some this morning. And again, I'm just taking 500 micrograms. So how much that's going to affect, I don't know. But to your question, I think, and again, this is my opinion, I think the max a bodybuilder looking for maximum size can take weekly is 10 milligrams. Now, if you take 10 milligrams, which is again, like literally 4 times the amount I'm taking weekly right now, and again, this is Brian's thoughts and also our chemist's thoughts, you're going to hit saturation of the receptors probably in about 6 to 8 weeks if you're that high of a dose. There is a net tissue or a net accumulation or buildup, again, in the androgen receptors in the skeletal muscle. So you probably can expect like 12 to 14 weeks, maybe 16 weeks, where you'll feel the heightened expression of the follistatin. So the way we're going to tell people to do this is depends on, again, your goal, right? If you're a bodybuilder and you're elite, you're professional, and your goal is to put on 20 to 25 pounds of skeletal mass, which I don't really know how much of that is keepable. I think if you did a year of this and you rotated like every 12 to 16 weeks and then took 8 weeks off and then did it again and then maybe took another 8 weeks off and did it again,
you probably could keep 70, somewhere between 65 and 65 and 75% is conservative. Obviously, genetics, androgen receptor sensitivity is going to make a big difference in that, like where you are in your training. I think an older person like me, somebody who's in their 50s and is still, relatively muscular and lean year round, if you could see like an actual 10 to 15 pound, net muscle difference in a 12-month period that is keepable. And again, whether it's 70 to 80% or 65 to 75% of that is keepable, as you know, dude, that's dramatic. I mean, that's like, holy fuck, right? Because someone in their 40s and 50s who has, very developed detail, in their muscularity, they have obviously really strong, good venous architecture. You can see their forearms are, very veiny and just call it vascular. That type of person seeing 8 to 10 pounds of muscle is like noticeable, right? Because you've obviously been like that probably for a long time. You've been training along that. This is obviously assuming you're hormonally optimized. You maybe use microdoses of growth hormone, microdoses of anabolics a couple times a year, but you're normal and otherwise healthy. If you see 8 to 10 pounds of muscle, that's insane, right? So like we think that is probably the number, but for a pro bodybuilder, let's call him an elite Olympian type, I would assume that you could probably, doing everything else, you could probably add 20 pounds in 12 months, right? And again, I don't mean 20 pounds of like, oh, you bulked up and you got glycogen and you're eating fucking 8,000 calories a day. I mean 20 pounds of net skeletal muscle. How it will be distributed is probably up to your genetics, but there's no doubt that this Follistatin is incredible. Now, I know when some people are going to hear this and they're going to be like most of the people on IG right now, they're like, oh, he's full of shit. These guys are just marketers. They're not, there's no way. I've used Follistatin. And the other thing is, and I think this, Drew, and Brian and I have done a decent job, at least on IG, of telling people our Follistatin is not what other people are used to. In fact, there's no comparison. And for the record, this is a patented form of Follistatin that will have an IRB in the United States, and with the intention, obviously, of selling this product to a major, I'm sure, pharmaceutical supplier at some point, assuming that's what we do. I mean, that's obviously the intention, because this is not like some joke product that some guy built in his fucking basement. This is something that's been, done with primates, with cats, with dogs, with horses, with rats. I mean, we have, a detailed like 12 months of data, and obviously it's going to be in phase 2 at some point early next year. And along with Clotho, which we'll get to, is going to be through the state of Montana in a right to try. So, I mean, like this is all being done above board, with patents and doing everything with, obviously advanced molecular biochemistry and recombinant engineering and all that stuff. So it's not like, some guys in a basement building this out. So that would be my guess, is that ultimately a super elite could probably put on 20 pounds of actual real skeletal mass in a 12-month period. And of that of that amount of mass, they probably could keep somewhere between 12 and 15 pounds, like actually permanently. And again, you know what that means, bro? Like permanently is you're still training, you're still eating right, you're still doing all the things, you're living the lifestyle, right? Because, a lot of people are asking us like, dude, am I going to gain 30 pounds and it's going to be like that forever? And I'm like, of course, I have no way to answer that, because I don't know how your lifestyle is. I don't know how you're going to train. I don't know how you're going to eat. I don't know if you're going to remain hormonally optimized. I think a lot of people in this, lifestyle go really hard for a year and then they just stop doing everything. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you have to live the life. You have to do all the things, so to speak. But I really think that this is a breakthrough. I think, because I didn't answer and I should, I think if you are adding in anabolics, you're using a DECA, you're using an EQ, you're using a Mastron, and again, you're just an aspiring, bodybuilder who's attempting to put on weight over a 12-month mesocycle. I think adding those things in is only going to enhance what you're doing. But there's no question that somebody like me, somebody like Brian, somebody like Matt, who is just, hormonally optimized, maybe using a little bit of a growth hormone in the morning or taking a growth hormone agonist peptide like a Tess or IPA, and that's what Brian's doing right now. You can easily still put on 8 to 10 pounds of muscle in 7, 8, 9 weeks by just training and eating enough food. That's how amazing the product is.
Hey guys, I'm going to interrupt myself while I'm talking to somebody here, but I'm going to interrupt myself from the future because it's still me just interjecting a pre-recorded version of me saying something in the middle of something. I know, weird, right? I want you guys to check out the DDT Method School Group. Social media is kind of weird these days, and I keep getting shut down or banned or temporarily suspended or whatever anytime I mention anything like a protocol or a milligram. So in the DDT Method School Group, I'll be doing 2 weekly content drops where I'll be giving exclusive protocols and full breakdowns and profiles of all your favorite peptides and PEDs. This is the DDT Method School Group. Check it out in the link below. Now, with this product working through pathways involving primarily myostatin and basically taking the regulator off how muscle grows, it makes me think about how can this be utilized as one pathway of many for somebody that does want to approach muscle growth from multiple different angles.
Yeah.
So I see this as a pathway in and of itself. And you mentioned too that using something anabolic going through that pathway is another way to enhance it.
Yep.
How would this fit in with something like a slightly higher dose of an exogenous growth hormone as opposed to the secretagogues and growth hormone releasing peptides, growth hormone releasing hormones? If we were to leverage something like a higher dose GH for a short amount of time in the pursuit of hyperplasia, are those things pairing together well, or is that too much? Are we better suited using like a tesamorelin or an IPEM or something like that?
No, the assumption is yes. The real answer is we don't really know. I mean, the theory would be that you would take probably, again, if maximum growth, and this is at that point we just say we're not doctors, we just play ones on the internet.
Right.
If you're assuming maximum growth and you're somebody who, let's say you're a Joe bodybuilder, you're 30 to 35 years old, so you've been 10 years plus in the gym consistently, and you want to put on the maximum amount of growth or maximum amount of muscle in a 16-week period, let's say that your 16-week mesocycle, you would definitely want to take like 3 or 4 IUs of growth in the morning. You would probably want to do somewhere between 4 to 6 units of slim before you train. Obviously, you're eating a diet that is probably eucaloric, but you're getting a lot of protein. Let's say you're getting 1.25 grams of protein per pound of lean mass. You're getting another say 2.5 to 3.5 grams of carbs per your body weight a day, and then whatever is your essential fatty acids. You probably could see 30 to 35 pounds of mass in 16, I'm not mass, but weight in 16 weeks. And of that, again, probably somewhere is between half to 20 of that amount would be real muscle. And again, how much you maintain and keep moving forward is up to you and your individual genetics. Obviously, there's some DNA involved, and then there's also just your lifestyle. I mean, I think epigenetic is always the biggest key. How consistent can you stay after that 16-week mesocycle where you really push it and you rev, you go to red line it's like what happens after, I think ultimately determines how much you keep. But there's no question, dude, that this drug is changing my body. It's changing Matt and Brian's. It's definitely changing Bobby's. I mean, I just saw Bobby 2 weeks ago for our meetings down here in, we had the Hack Your Health conference, but he was also down here for our BioLongevity EOS meetings, and the guy's neck and shoulders are like getting bigger and bigger. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And he's like, I'm telling you, bro, it's just the Follistatin. So like, I know that, again, your genetics and your androgen receptor sensitivity kind of ultimately determines how fast you see results with Follistatin, but it is a game changer. Our chemist told us this morning that he expects that once people, have 4 to 6 weeks of seeing this, that demand is going to go through the roof. And just so you know, he's been involved in like some pro hormone companies back in the day that exploded and sold for, a geometric price point. And so, he's kind of chosen us to bring these products into the marketplace. And I have to tell you, and I know this is going to blow people's minds, and you can, go deeper down the rabbit hole when you talk to Brian, but bro, he has a super Retatrutide coming.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, so here's the thing. It's not actually a GLP, so we don't have to worry about copyright or patent infringement as everybody else does, because as you know, and we can get into that, now or later, but obviously 2026, everything is going to change because Novo Nordisk and Lilly are going to slam the door on everybody using GLPs because they're basically going to be saying, hey, we own the patents. All you motherfuckers in the compounding space, in the research space, which is considered RUO, to the regulatory bodies, research use only, you can't sell GLPs. You don't have the right. You don't have the law. The law is not in your favor. We've sent you guys cease and desist letters for 3 fucking years. And a lot of you didn't do anything except threw them away, but you went on a list, et cetera. So I don't want to like go into deep details on that, but I can just tell everybody in the research and the regulatory space, meaning compounding space, everything is changing in 2026. So you have to be ready. And for the purposes of that, like where this is going. And as I told you, I'm writing this book called Metabolic Awakening, which I'll definitely, when it launches, I'll come back on this podcast and we can just break the book down because the book is insane. I mean, my copywriter's been writing on it for 8 months and I started editing it like 6 weeks ago. And bro, it's deeper than any book I've ever written. It's got 600 scientific citations. We have a whole chapter on what's coming, and what's coming, most people can't comprehend. But the truth is that small molecules will replace GLPs. Mm-hmm. Because you'll have 4, 5, 6 stage agonist, drugs, quad agonist drugs. I mean, and these things are all small molecules. So the thing about small molecules, if you understand the regulatory space, is you can't really patent them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's hard to patent this or patent that when you've got all of these different pathways already expressed with various other permutations of them. So it's very difficult space for pharma to own, which is obviously great for all of us because people like me and other research companies and other chemists can bring these products out without like threat of patent infringement or fear of retribution because they're like, hey, you can't touch this. So it's a very interesting space to be in. But just to tell you about the new product, it binds, you ready for this? It binds 50 times harder than Reta does.
Holy shit.
So imagine taking, no, I'm not joking when I say this, 100 micrograms of this product once a month. And it will dramatically improve nutrient partitioning, insulin signaling. It won't affect appetite at all because the way it works is it binds in the brain. So the brain will basically be told, hey, eat as much as the metabolic demand is occurring in your body. So obviously, the more muscular and the leaner you are, the more you'll receive the amplification of nutrient partitioning and insulin signaling. So you'll be able to be, according to the chemist, bro, he said, this is the ultimate bodybuilding drug. Because the stronger, more muscular, more dense muscular you are, the faster the nutrient partitioning and insulin signaling will improve in your body. So you could theoretically eat 7,000 or 8,000 calories a day and only gain muscle and not get fat.
So it's going to meet you where you're at.
Exactly. And it's going to massively improve glycogen depletion and repletion in the liver, right? So it's like people don't really understand, but when we're eating tons of carbohydrates, like how clean our liver is really determines how fast we can process those and get rid of them and dump them, into portal circulation or dump them into the urine and stuff like that. So it's going to dramatically improve a lot of things that are happening, at a cellular level, also at an organ level, to improve, again, that metabolic cascade of, again, glycogen depletion, glycogen repletion, improving ATP synthase or ATP production. So again, it should create mass monsters. Like this should be the drug that literally will make a 375-pound bodybuilder on stage at 5% body fat. Right.
That's insane. With Retatrutide in general, I just did a 40-minute deep dive for my school group on all the benefits of Retatrutide.
It's the most amazing drug in the history of the world. In the history of the world.
It really is, because I know you've done multiple deep dives like same way. And when we go over everything that it does, it's really one of those things where it's like everybody really needs to be using this at some point or another, if not permanently.
Drew, it's the drug that can eliminate obesity. But here's the problem. The problem is that next year, and again, I don't want my feet held to the fire on this because I think things can change. I know there will be lawsuits. I know that the compound pharmacies are not going to lay down when this happens, but Trump has sold out. It's no surprise, right? He's basically taken the money from the Lilly's and the Novo Nordisks and said, okay, in order to give these cheap prices to the people, because you've all heard about this, right? Like they've said, oh, we're going to lower the monthly cost of semaglutide and we're going to lower the monthly cost of tirzepatide. We're going to make it affordable, so to speak, right? $249 for SEMA and $379 for TERS. But remember, for everybody out there, this is for insurance copayments. This is not for the average person who doesn't use insurance to get this stuff. And obviously, it doesn't affect people like us who buy our stuff for research chemicals and experiment for research purposes on ourselves and rodents. But I mean, like, the reality of this is that he basically said, look, I'm going to lower the price to the American people, AKA sheeple. And in doing so, I'm going to eliminate your competition. So of course, Lilly and Novo Nordisk said, okay. But dude, you know this because we can look at every point in time in history. Whenever you eliminate competitors and you give the big, call them pharmaceutical manufacturers control, what do you think they do? I mean, eventually the prices go up because there's nobody to counter them. So I think, this is again my opinion, I think that, like I said already, 2026 is insane. I think most research companies are in real trouble. I think almost all compounders who focus on making GLP products are in serious trouble, like worse trouble than RUO. And I think that we see a dramatic shift in manufacturing to small molecules, because the small molecule products, which again are coming, and my book will have everything. And by the way, dude, I'll send you the chapter on the new shit coming because it'll blow your fucking mind. There's actually an injectable peptide that takes out fat tissue and literally causes apoptosis at the point of injection. And in the studies, it's working better than anything else. Like, the only side effect is a little bit of post-injection pain. But imagine being a bodybuilder, right? And being shredded, but you just have this one stubborn area right here that you can't get rid of. Imagine injecting into it and killing the fat cells and being gone in 24 hours.
So we're talking a safe, almost adipotide, because adipotide tried to do that.
Adipotide is shit. Exactly. Yeah. Adipotide is absolutely shit. It causes necrosis. It's horrible. Right. But yeah, so imagine something that's like adipotide, but it actually works and has very minimal side effects other than post-injection pain. And that's coming. But dude, there's so many other ones. So again, just to wrap it, like, I think on GLPs, I think that if you sell GLPs in 2026, you have to be licensed by Lilly or Novo Nordisk, or again, one of the giant pharmaceutical manufacturers. Again, the too big to fail drug companies. And if you're in this space of RUO or compounding, you're going to have to focus on selling peptides that are approved. And by the way, and this is just a rumor too, but I think it's a pretty strong rumor. I've been told that all of the class 2 peptides, which are the majority of the ones that we all love and use, are being moved back to class 1, which will mean that a compounding pharmacy and your local physician can write you a script for any of those peptides. So I think what's going to happen is the quid pro quo is they take GLPs away from the compounders, but they give them the access to write scripts for all the other peptides that are supposedly now considered risky, or as they know, class 2. So it's kind of like, well, we took away GLPs from you, but we're giving you guys access to all the other peptides. But Drew, here's the thing, and this is the math. 80% of the revenue in the compounding space is GLP manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you pull all that away from these guys who have these, giant megalithic companies, I think of the Empowers, the Hollandales, the South Lake pharmacies, who have thousands of employees. Like, what are they going to do when you take away 80% of their revenue? I mean, sure, they'll replace a little bit of it with peptides, but they're not going to replace the lion's share, because again, dude, you know this, and I know this from our documentary we just made. Only 1% of American society right now still even knows what the fuck a peptide is. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're going to just generate all this new revenue by telling people about BPC, TB500, SS31, and all these other great peptides that you and I know about. So it's a weird place to be in. But like I said, I think if you are a smart person and you are in the space like you and I are in, you listen to podcasts like this, you need to start looking into small molecules, because I think that's where this is all going. I mean, obviously peptides are not going away. The genie's not getting put back in the bottle. But if you're relying on a GLP peptide right now from a research company, you will not be able to get that. And if you do get that, you're getting it in a very risky, underground type of way. And those people that are selling it are putting their life at risk, or I shouldn't say their life, but putting their liberty at risk
their
by
livelihood.
selling it to you, right? Yeah, because you don't want to do that. So again, I think the whole future is the small molecules, the bioignites, the shred maxes, which we can get to. But products like that are not part of the GLP infrastructure, because I'm telling you, dude, pharma, and again, it's mostly Lilly and Novo Nordisk who control it. They don't want anybody selling GLPs. They see that as a multiple trillion-dollar industry, and they don't want anybody selling it. And by the way, speaking of, on Thursday of last week, Lilly announced they were now $1 trillion market cap. trillion. Think about that.
That doesn't seem problematic at all. So that doesn't worry me about big pharma's power in any way, shape, or form. Now that we've given probably about 150 to 200 peptide company owners and compounding pharmacy owners heart attacks on their way to work in the morning.
More than that, to be honest with you, but yeah, I mean, dude, everyone should be worried. They shouldn't have heart attacks. I mean, if you're in the research use only, you are not in any sort of trouble except if you're selling terzapatide, semaglutide, and retatrutide. And let's just be honest, because you know this. If you've been selling TERS and SEMA and getting away with it because they weren't enforcing it, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Exactly.
It's always been that way. So if you had, the courage, or just call it the gumption, to sell those products when you legally couldn't, that's on you. And again, I don't hold any judgment against you. I hope you're good with your money and you've done stuff with it, but it won't be much longer that you'll be able to sell those products without enforcement coming. And that's the way it is.
I think that's what we deal with, unfortunately, in an industry that's very much still in the Wild West stages, because we're at this point where innovation is so rapid. The laws are kind of scrambling to catch up and do different things. And then obviously big companies, big pharma, everybody wants to have a hand in something because they see it and they see the possibility, et cetera, et cetera.
100%.
And this is why I love when we do these interviews, Jay, we never really pick a specific topic. We kind of just let it evolve and flow how it should. And this has really taken the direction of kind of the future of the industry, talking about the changes that are coming, the new products that are coming out. But we do have to touch on some of the tried and true. And I say that about things that haven't been around for very long, but there are other things that are still at our disposal that I don't want to let all the new developments kind of overshadow. Rather, I'd like to start talking about how we can use these things together and how we can just open different doors and benefit even further. Like, I don't want to make this the Follistatin podcast, as amazing as Follistatin is.
Yeah.
But to touch on the Follistatin product a little bit more, what would you recommend for when it is time to put other products in? So I know you guys are testing it in isolation right now. You're doing your due diligence to basically give everybody this template of what happens when you do this or what happens when you do that. But when it comes time for Jay Campbell to unleash the floodgates and open Pandora's box, when you're trying to build muscle, what are you putting in alongside Follistatin?
So here it is, the ultimate stack. And again, shout outs to the Gorilla Chemist, because him and I have been working very detailed behind the scenes to release this, which is going to be released tomorrow night. So you are absolutely getting the first level. You definitely want to add Reta, right? So obviously when Reta goes away, and again, I'll just say this because I know this is going to come out soon. If you are a smart person and you can read the tea leaves of what Drew and I have been talking about, stock up on Reta immediately. Just please do that. It's out there. It will be everywhere pretty soon, because obviously I just gave the keys to the kingdom away. So now all the research companies, when they hear this, are going to be like, oh, fuck, we got to liquidate. So get as much of that shit as you can. Again, knowing that there's going to be even better small molecule versions coming, triple, quad, and even 5 and 6 stage agonists of these small molecules. But Reta at a microdose, depending on if you're a bodybuilder or you're somebody that's just trying to lose weight, the dose is anywhere from like 0.25, I think, to 0.5 to 0.75 to even maybe 1 milligram 3 times a week. That's in your cycle for sure. Obviously, if you're a bodybuilder and you are going for max growth, it should be 5 to 10 milligrams a week of Follistatin. On your days that you inject Follistatin, Follistatin is a once a week injection or a once every 2 weeks. Again, as a bodybuilder, me and Brian feel that plasma concentrations are best when you do a once a week injection versus once every 2. And again, remember the half-life is 19 days. So it technically doesn't make that big of a difference, but mentally, I think it's better to be on that rotation of like 1 shot a week. But anywhere, it's 5 to 10 milligrams. So if you're taking 10 milligrams, you're essentially injecting 2 vials a week, because our vials are 5 milligrams each, right? So you would have to basically take 1 shot and by the way, I need to say this, right? You got to inject the Follistatin sub-Q. You cannot inject IM for the Follistatin, because again, the albumin binder will expand in the tissue, and you'll get a lot of pain. There is a little tiny microscopic amount of post-injection pain on the Follistatin, But again, if you're going to take 10 as a bodybuilder, you're going to inject this side and this side of your trunk, and you're going sub-Q. So you would inject a whole bottle. People are like, how much water do I put in the vial? It doesn't matter, half a cc, a full cc. If you're doing like what I'm doing and you're injecting half a vial, every week, then obviously you want to put in 1 cc, right? So you take 0.5 is your shot. And then next Tuesday, because my shots are on Tuesday, I take another 0.5, right? But if you're obviously going to do double the dose of anybody else right now, which again is what me and Brian would say is your saturation dose, you're taking a whole vial. And it doesn't matter. Again, you can put in a half cc or 1 cc because you're injecting 1 whole vial a week. Excuse me, you would inject 2 whole vials a week to take 10. So one side. But again, somewhere between 5 and 10 for max muscle. So either 2 vials a week or 1 whole vial a week. You're definitely taking TB500, which I would assume if you're taking the 10, you're probably going to want to do 1 milligram every other day. If you're not taking 10 and you're doing 5, or even 2.5, you're probably going to do like what I'm doing, which is like 0.5 to 0.6 micrograms every other day. And then again, food, supplements. Sure, you can add Shred Max, a high dose of Sloop if you want. If you don't want to do a high dose of Sloop right now, you can just take, really awesome metabolic optimizing peptide blends. Like we have Metabo blend, which is NAD, 5-amino and MOTS-C together, or you could just take SS31 and all those together. So it really just
the Metabo blend sounds awesome. That one might be a little bit better suited if we're kind of in the lens of muscle building specifically. Now, yes. I want to go over the ultimate fat loss stack, like the ultimate fat loss stack, but in focusing on just hypertrophy. I'm hearing Follistatin. I'm hearing definitely the TB500. And thank you so much for breaking down how that works. That's awesome. And then the microdose of Reta, because as we discussed, Reta is not necessarily a fat loss tool, partitioner. Where else are we going on this? I want you to give me the cycle that I'm going to get 40 comments of people saying, this is stupid. It's so expensive. Well, it's an expensive habit, guys. Give me the full breakdown of hypertrophy for the modern age.
So if I get into anabolics, well, first off, as I already said, growth hormone between 4 and 6 IUs in the morning, SLIN between 4 and 6 IUs before you train. Everybody's got different SLIN strategies. I mean, if you want to break that up and doing before and after, with liquid nutrition, intra and after and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not getting into nutrition because I'm assuming that people understand how to eat to gain. Right. But the anabolics that you would throw in that would be preferable would for sure be, from an oral standpoint, it would either be Anavar or Primobolan, right? And I would assume that you would take somewhere between 50 and 100 milligrams of Primobolan and probably the same thing of Anavar. And that would be daily. And then from an injectable, depending on how good your prostate is, it's somewhere between, or it's something like Masteron or even injectable Primobolan. You can even use DHT at a low dose. You got to be really careful with DHT because it's so powerful that it can completely sexually suppress you and make you a fucking eunuch. So you probably only want to do like 50 to 75 milligrams of DHT if you have a really good form of DHT ananthate or something like that. But it's one of those things. It's like injectable Primo, injectable EQ, injectable Masteron, or injectable DHT would be your anabolic. And I would assume, again, depending on how big you are and what your genetics are, you're taking somewhere between 200 and 400 milligrams a week of that. Again, if you're a pro bodybuilder and you're using test, let's say 500 to 1,000 milligrams a week, which again, a lot of people are. I think that's kind of where you are. But that would be what you would need, obviously, with training dialed in, with your nutrition dialed in. And I would do that for like 12 to 16 weeks, again, with somewhere between 5 and 10 milligrams of Follistatin a week, depending on what you can afford. And that should be like the mega mass, mega monster. I can put 20 to 25 pounds of keepable skeletal mass on in that 16-week program.
Absolutely love it. The only thing I would like to kind of dive into a little bit more is how can we best leverage, because you mentioned SS31. If we're going all out, how can we best leverage that based on your experience? Because I've been deep diving into this peptide since we spoke about it at dinner last February, and you I mean, you've said it many times since, but it was the first time I heard you use the phrase amplifier peptide.
Yeah, that's
and
what
when
it
I
is.
dove into how it works and binding within the cell and increasing the integrity of the strength of the cell and its ability to do everything, I've leveraged it in varying doses. And I got to the point where I'm running between 5 and 10 milligrams per day right now.
Yep.
And I take 2 days off per week generally, as
Sure.
I do with most things.
Yep.
And since driving that up, the results have been profound.
Yeah.
I want to know, how can we leverage SS31 to drive forward this process of hypertrophy or just recovery in general? And what have you heard? What have you seen? Because you have a massive circle of people experimenting with different doses. How far can we actually push this?
I mean, truthfully, you would add that what you're doing. I mean, again, not many people can afford that, right? I mean, obviously, you and I can afford that, and there are people in our circle that can afford that. But the average person is going to be like, as you know, Jesus Christ, Jay and Drew, that's going to cost fucking $100 a day for SS31. Yeah, but I mean, the reality is that driving that up, I would add high dose sloop with the SS31. And I would basically take somewhere between 600 milligrams and a gram a day of sloop, which again is also going to cost you, with the SS31 exactly at the dosage that you took. And what you'll see is an unquenchable appetite, which for somebody who is attempting to put on mass, that's what they need, right? Because that's what most people complain about, is they can't get enough calories in. But when you do that, combined with all those other things that we already talked about, you're going to see a dramatic increase in appetite. Because again, dude, you're just like a rapid ATP synthase machine. You're just dramatically upregulating ATP, and so your body can't. I mean, you can't get fat. There's just no possible way, if you're taking that level of SS31 combined with close to a gram a day of SLU, that you're going to get fat. It's just not possible. I mean, I can't get fat at this point now in my age, at 55 years of age, when I'm taking 600 milligrams a day or more of SLU. I mean, I've been off of it, by the way, just for the record, for about 22 days now, because I really wanted to see what would happen with Follistatin with not being on that. And I still haven't really put on fat. I thought I would be a little fatter in the last 2 or 3 days because, dude, I ate 2 apple pies. I mean, Matt gave me the baddest apple pie ever from Kentucky, and I'm sure it had like 6,000 grams of sugar in it. And I've eaten 2 of them in 2 days, and I have not gotten fatter. So, I mean, like, I know the Follistatin, like I said, is also doing a lot of things to improve that. But I thought I would get fatter coming off the sloop. But you know what's happening, and this is what Brian has said, is there's a skeletal tissue buildup effect of the sloop. So it's still in my system, and it's still helping me burn calories at accelerated rate, because it's only been like 22 days and I was on it for about 9 weeks, and I started with Brian gave me 200 milligrams, and then I pushed it to 400, and then I was at 600. And I think the last couple of weeks I was taking somewhere between 800 milligrams and a gram a day. But to your question, your dose of SS31 is where you needed to be. You honestly could probably even go a little bit higher than that, because the studies show that like they help dramatically. Somebody just put a study in one of my groups, which I need to add you to, about somebody taking I think it was 12 milligrams a day of SS31. And what it did for vision, like, it was insane. Like, it completely, people that had loss of vision had their sight restored. I mean, again, it just does so many good things. So I think you probably could push SS31 to 10 milligrams and take your sloop to, again, 1 gram a day. And that is going to dramatically improve appetite. And again, just allow metabolic function to process all the things that are happening with all the other things you're doing. And I would assume that would allow you to probably eat between 7,000 and 10,000 calories a day without, gaining fat. And if anything, just getting bigger. So you would see that. Again, it's hard, I would say, for most people to still eat that much, even on a microdose of Retatrutide, because again, how effective Retatrutide is. So if you were going to do that and you wanted to take the Reta out, just so you could eat more, you could probably experiment with that. But as you know, some people, I'm one of them, I get 0 appetite suppression on Reta.
Same.
Yeah. So, but some people, dude, they take it and they're like, holy shit, I don't want to eat. Because I think what Reta does in a lot of people's brains is, and I don't mean to sound crazy, but like, some people, bro, as you know, they don't feel worthy. And so they just eat to eat. right? And so Reta is stopping at the brain level that desire to just want to eat and destroy themselves. So it's like, that's why they don't eat. But I think like compared to TERS or SEMA, where we're actually literally getting like slowed gastric emptying, I think that it doesn't do that. So I think people like us, bodybuilding, lean people, there's really no loss of appetite. It just improves it to the point where, again, the nutrient partitioning, insulin signaling is so improved that you can actually eat more. In fact, I know this for myself. Dude, when I dose in the morning, and again, I do not take ever more than like 0.25 or 0.3 of Reta, ever. Never go higher. That day by 4 o'clock, I'm like, oh, fuck. I got to eat.
Yep.
Right. I got to eat. My body is like, it's time to eat, motherfucker. So I just think that, if you throw in SS and you throw in SLU, it's just improving it even more because your body is like, it has this insatiable demand for glycogen.
Because I think that's such a smart way to put it together too. And people will always miss out on the little intricacies of why we do certain things. And that's why I tend to yell about it on Instagram a lot because I get frustrated. But you need to understand how stuff works. And that doesn't mean you need to give like convoluted, overly detailed biochemistry seminars on every single question somebody has about it or every single piece of content that you put out. I have all that stuff in a separate school group just because I don't want to be that guy on social media. But when you know how stuff works, you can say something like what you just did. You just very simply, oh, well, low dose of Reta, and then, take some SLU, and then you take the SS31 at a higher dose, adding on to this mass scanning phase that we're talking about. And at first listen, somebody that might be scanning through this is going, oh, Jay's just saying these because he sells these. These are fat loss products, whatever the hell. First of all, it's like you're going to sell stuff that fucking works. So it's not like you're selling stuff that doesn't work.
That's a fact.
Then you would have been out of business in the first month.
Exactly.
But when we really break that down, not to get too involved in it, low dose Reta, nutrient partitioning, we're putting glycogen into the muscles. We're opening this continuous loop of dumping blood sugar into the body and then into the muscle and partitioning it. You're taking an SLU in that dose, like a milligram or so, and you're basically supercharging the cell's need and demand to pull substrate in, which means you're going to pull body fat in most of the day for energy, as we should be, as we're intended to. But when you need immediate energy, like when you're training, you're going to pull all this stored up muscular glycogen that the SLU increases, which is going to be further increased by the Reta because that's increasing nutrient partitioning. And then the cell's working so hard to create all this energy and pull in all this substrate, you're taking the SS31 to reinforce the cell so the engine's not burning out too fast or overheating while everything's cranking along. And we're doing it in doses to drive more energy by pulling more food, to utilize more food, to make more ATP, to thus grow and recover and do all the ATP things that we need to do. And that is just Drew's quick, angry rant on why these fat burning products can be used to build muscle, because I'm just preemptively cutting off somebody's comment before they drop it in the comment section, because that's the stuff that annoys the crap out of me.
That's awesome, dude. Everything you just said, we nailed it.
Thank you. Last question on muscle building, because then I want to dive a little bit into fat loss and just general optimization.
Sure.
I haven't heard you speak recently on IGF-LR3, and it's making a bit of a resurgence. Does IGF have a place in this mass stack, or is it maybe something for in between or after Follistatin, or do you feel that it's obsolete and doesn't have a place anymore?
It's obsolete with Follistatin. Completely obsolete. I mean, in theory, it might have a place, but I think that what Follistatin is doing with a 19-day half-life, because you got to remember, like, and let's go back. So IGF-LR3 also is another one of those, like, mythical products that if you get the real stuff, you see, improvement in localized hypertrophy. You see better glycogen, synthase, or, the enzyme is improved. So you hold on to stuff as you're eating more, you get bigger faster. But dude, that's also very theoretical. Cause like when you talk to people in our space, especially like a lot of pro bodybuilders, who have purchased, I won't say, but the stuff from Saudi Arabia, and they're like, it's either like, oh my God, or it was fake. So I don't think that there's any supplier out there right now of that product. And don't hold me. I'm sure there are some pharmacies in the United States that are making it, and it's so outrageously expensive that you can't get it on the call it gray market, because they won't sell it at that cost. it would probably be worthwhile, but majority of them in the marketplace, I would assume, are not. And I don't say that because we don't sell it. But right now, Follistatin, without a doubt, and again, this version of recombinant Follistatin, FLGR242, is kind of going to make that obsolete because it's doing everything that IGF-1, LR3 would technically do. And the other thing is too, and this is what Brian would say, is like, who gives a fuck if you take 6 IUs of growth hormone a day, combined with SLIN, combined with Follistatin, and then all your other things to drive your anabolic and androgenic signal higher? You're not going to see from a dollar to dollar standpoint any kind of massive advantage as long as you're doing all those other things. Now, if you didn't have growth hormone, if you didn't have a TESA IPA or a CJC IPA, and you had IGF-1 LR3 and it was legit, absolutely fucking use it. But I don't think there's very many people, out there that can say they don't have access to growth hormone or the growth hormone, secretogs or analogs, however you want to call them, the PEPs that have that would also have access to that, or vice versa, if that makes sense.
So is it beneficial? Sure. Will it move the needle? Not really.
Not from a cost standpoint. If you get the real shit, the real McCoy, which it's not cheap, it's not going to. If you have it and somebody's giving it to you, and it's not costing you anything, and you want to throw it on as like kindling on top of a fucking roaring fire just to see if you can get a peaked flame, sure, go ahead. But I wouldn't throw it in. It's not going to make that big of a difference.
Understood. Now, my last question about muscle building in general, with everything that's available right now and all the tools at our disposal, obviously with things like Follistatin, with everything in play that we've discussed, you're going to be training way harder. And that goes for the elite level athlete that already trains really hard. And that goes for like the everyday business owner, housewife, whoever the hell is just going all in and just whatever they're doing. If they're doing this type of a stack, their training, be it intense, good or bad, will become a more intense version of what it is.
Yep.
What type of recovery modalities should we be leveraging? Do you like to look into more of the glutathiones, the antioxidants? Do you think it should be a nutritional approach? Or do you think we should be looking into like recovery technology? Like I know you use the micro bubble tub. Yeah. We have sauna, we have red light, we have all these other things and biohacks and whatnot. How important is focusing on recovery when you're doing something that's going to be driving the system so hard? And what are some of your preferred recovery modalities?
Well, dude, here's actually even better. I'm so glad you asked me this because I rarely talk about this, but we need to talk about how to train when you're doing this too. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of guys will lift heavy, and that is the opposite of what you want to do on this type of program. You need to hit all 3 energy systems, right? So you've got to hit the anaerobic, the glycolytic, and then the ATP phosphogenic. Mm-hmm. If you don't do that, if you're just training like 3 to 5, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, you are massively underestimating and undercounting what you should be doing because, again, you need to hit all 3 energy systems. So this is what you should do, because Brian and I were talking about this other day, and again, we're going to be talking about this tomorrow night. You should be doing a form of dog crap training, German volume training. And what I do, and again, I'm an old man now at this point compared to most people. I'll be 55 in February, but I like doing fucking triple drops. So what I'll do is like I'll warm up and then I'll do 15 reps and then I'll wait 5 to 7 seconds. And I'll either do, again, it's kind of a form of dog crap. I'll either do another 4 to 5 with the same rep, same weight. And again, you should be targeting 65 to 75% of max as your working set, right? And then your third set, you should drop the weight and absolutely go to positive failure. 100%. And again, why are we doing this? We're jamming, we're pushing so much blood into the muscle. And we're also increasing our DOMs. We want to increase lactic acid formation. So if you do 2 sets like this, which is technically like 6 or 7 sets, you are going to hit every energy system. And I think this is the one thing where I see guys struggle with is, they go into the bodybuilding mags or the online sites and they do, 4 to 6 exercises per body part, and they're like doing 4 to 5 sets per body part, right? And they're like counting the reps and leaving stuff in the tank, when no, you should be going to positive muscle failure and literally pushing as much blood into the targeted muscle as possible. And I don't give a shit whether you do a split or you do a full body. I mean, at my age, bro, I literally do 3 days a week of full body, and I go 6 weeks, and then I switch to a 3-day split. I don't even train a 4th day anymore because, like, as you said, and we'll get into it, recovery is so much more important when you get older. It's so much more important. Pushing the envelope is just silly. I don't think you can't do a 4th day, if you got like stubborn body parts or you got, some things that you really want to work on, fine, do something on Saturday morning, hit them Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever. But it's like, you don't need to train more than 3 days a week. And again, you have to go, though, to a level where you crush the muscle. You should be walking out of the gym barely able to fucking walk. If that's how you're going to build muscle, especially with all these amazing exogenous things that we're talking about doing, you're going to see much faster growth if you do that. So, I mean, realistically, every single fucking set that you do, you should probably do close to 30 fucking reps. Like, that's literally where you should be. And again, I don't want people to think, oh, this motherfucker's talking about doing 30 reps with 65% of his 1 rep max. No, I'm saying go till you get to positive muscle failure. And if you do that with a couple warm-up sets, fuck, bro, you only are going to, and if you're doing a split, you only got like 6 working fucking drop sets of workout, right? Per body part, if you're doing 2 or 3, and you're fucking going to be dead. So I think that's very important, the older you are, the more machines. It's always that simple, right? Because you can use leverage, and you always want to target that muscle. You want to target like that upper chest definition. You can't do that from fucking benching. I mean, it's not going to happen. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. You're in your 20s and 30s. Compound movements are the basis of what you do. But once you get older, man, you got to actually understand how to leverage using a machine to just destroy the fibers. And again, I don't want to go into hyperplasia and all the things that happen at the sarcoplasmic, aspect of muscle building and stuff like that. But you got to push blood into the muscle. That is how you're going to build, especially with follistatin, increasing, as Brian said, like, interplasma fluid buildup and connecting to the ARs and all this stuff. There's so much going on. So push blood into the muscle, don't fucking target 3 to 5 reps. I mean, again, there's no muscle building. I mean, if you're a power athlete or a power man and you're training for that, I get that. That's a different thing, but that's not for building muscle. You're not building muscle doing that, especially with all these drugs. You have to push blood into the muscle, and you're not going to do it from doing 3 to 5 reps. It's not possible.
You really have to periodize training, and people don't really understand that. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the energy systems, because usually, at least these days, since the podcast has taken off, YouTube at the time of recording, we're about 3,000 subscribers. We're about 7,000 or 8,000 across all the other platforms combined.
That's awesome.
So it's been doing really well, and it's attracted kind of a high-end biohacking clientele to my business. And I don't do a lot of coaching anymore, but when I do consult calls and whatnot, I'll get a lot of people that are basically already taking everything. They've already been members of high-profile groups. They've absorbed a lot of high education. They know how to leverage a lot of the peptides and products and small molecules and whatnot. And the missing layer is always the training. And they're always caught up in 1 or 2 different systems of training. Maybe they do CrossFit. Maybe they train strictly for hypertrophy with the high frequency, low volume, whatever's popular right now. But touching on the energy systems, I mean, training your ATP phosphocreatine system makes you incredibly explosive and strong, but it can be incredibly restorative if you time that not to cross into glycolytic training. But then the glycolytic training and the volume is going to change how you store substrate, which will change sarcoplasmic hypertrophy parameters. It will lead to hypertrophy in new tissue. And you can go somewhere in between those two things. You can go purely metabolic, where we're just changing how your body stores substrate. This all has to do with not the exercises that you choose in terms of this hammer strength or that hammer strength, but in terms of what physiological response we're actually getting. And these can be paired with peptides and small molecules accordingly. If I'm taking something like a Follistatin, I want to focus on hypertrophy, and I don't really want to focus my time or waste my time on strength. But maybe before I take the Follistatin, I want to do a little neural block and see how strong I can get, and then bleed into hypertrophy with some metabolic stuff, change my body comp a little bit, add the Follistatin in, dial it into a hypertrophy / metabolic phase, not worrying about getting too big too fast, getting stronger than my tendons can handle, and then causing a problem there. But now I'm starting with higher loads than I had before. And I could rant about this for 6 hours.
That's
and one
awesome,
day
dude.
we'll do a whole conversation. We'll jump on maybe a live on my channel or somebody else's and talk about the training side of this too, because I'm incredibly passionate about that. But it's all about just knowing how to leverage these things and how to use them the right way. Now, what I want to do is I want to start touching on the other side of things, how we can leverage the fat loss angles, the longevity angles, because gaining muscle is amazing. And we have all these different ways to add it now. Yep. All the conversation that we've had on Follistatin and everything to put with it. But for this second hour, what I really want to focus on is how do we take the high achieving entrepreneur, fitness enthusiast, the person that wants to do everything right, and how do we give them that energy that they really need? Yep. How do we give them that mental clarity and that cognition that they're after to continue to be high performers and to continue to make money? And then how do we shred down all that body fat and just make them absolute specimens? Because not everybody wants to be huge. No. I hope we didn't lose out on too many people by just talking about how to get bigger for an hour, but everybody wants to get bigger at some point.
Yes.
We all want to be lean as hell.
Yes.
So what I want to start with is I want to start with the J. Campbell ultimate tools at our disposal and the things coming to the market soon. What is the J. Campbell updated 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, whatever number we're on right now? Get mind-blowingly shredded the fastest and most efficient way possible stack.
I love it. The God stack. I do want to go real back just to something that you said, because you said a lot of good things there. Like you said, it's a whole podcast. Something I didn't say that I should say is that when you're on Follistatin, you can train twice a day. 100%. Now, again, what does that mean? It doesn't mean you can go back in the second time and do the same fucking thing you did the first time, because if you're training to positive muscle failure, that's impossible. But if you do go in and you want to do a small part and hammer it, right? Like, for example, like in my split, I do chest and back on a day, right? If I want to go back in and hit upper chest, from a fly movement and do like, again, 3 more triple drop sets and then finish with abs and do 30 minutes on the bike or something like that, you can do that, right? Because like your body is just so strong and you have so much force production. And obviously if you're using high dose sloop, which I'm going to get to the J. Campbell God Stack in a second, version 10 or wherever the fuck it's at, you do have that force production. And that's the one thing that Brian and me and Matt have been talking about, that like, you just feel like you can train all day. But again, it's not an excuse to over fucking train. And as you know, bro, a lot of bros fucking overtrain. Now, the J. Campbell, just call it the God Stack. Let's just call it version 10. Right now, 100% is, and again, depending on if you want to be massive or you just want to be muscular and shredded as fuck, it's somewhere between 2.5 and 5 milligrams of Follistatin a week. And again, for me, it's just 2.5. It's always a low dose of Reta. Obviously, at some point, it'll be replaced by this, call it Super Reta. We're actually calling it, I'll just throw it out there. The name is actually going to be called Lepto XR. And that's going to be our, call it quad or, 5-stage agonist, whatever fucking small molecule it is. And that will be a super low dose monthly. I'm not joking, like 1 injection a month. But right now it's Reta and it's again 0.25 to 0.3, 2 or 3 times a week. Obviously, I'm always on testosterone, right? So I'm always on somewhere between 150 and 200 milligrams a week of test. That doesn't change. I have not used any anabolics for a long time. And it was really, as you know, to test SLU. And now in the last, close to 8 weeks, it's been to test Follistatin. And again, I've said this and I'll say this. And again, Brian gets all the credit for this. 600 milligrams to 1 gram a day of SLU is literally like taking 25 to 30 milligrams of Primo or Anavar with no side effects. And when I mean no side effects, I mean improved biomarkers, because SLU does a lot of things to improve kidney function, improve vascular function, does a lot of really amazing things. So I'm throwing in SLU at least 3 8-week cycles a year of somewhere between, again, if you're a woman, and we should talk about the women because I know there's women that watch this too, they're probably 100 to 200 milligrams a day as tops, but a dude is somewhere between 600 milligrams and a gram. We got to mention Clotho. We haven't talked about Clotho. If you are over the age of 40, you should be on Clotho. It's non-negotiable. It improves endothelial function. I injected my Clotho this morning, and it's, again, once every 2 week shot of 10 micrograms. And bro, instantly my brain firing better. Sexual desire improves instantly. Like you're automatically like, oh, I need to fuck. I mean, it's crazy how amazing it is. Now, obviously, the older you are, the more noticeable you're going to be, like, call it bioenergetic cascades, like noticing things. I mean, obviously, I'm very intuitive and in touch with my physiology, so I know stuff too. But I think after 3 or 4 weeks of using Clotho, I think everyone is in touch with that. So I'm throwing that in, obviously, at 10 micrograms every 2 weeks. Again, I haven't been using an anabolic. I don't know if I even need it ever again, because when I do use Primo or Anavar, I do get a little bit of prostatic hyperplasia because it makes me piss, usually an extra time in the middle of the night, which obviously I fucking hate that. So if I can do without that now and just run SLU and run Follistatin year round, and take time off, with obviously SS31 or the metabolic blend, and again, rotate those kind of from a mitochondrial optimizing stack, I'll do that. I'm just trying to think of like what else I'm taking. So from a supplement standpoint, I'm always taking urolithin A because of obviously the repair. Brian is developing what is going to be called Biocharge, which is an absolute power mitochondrial repair stack. So if you run SLU at 600 milligrams to a gram for 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever it is you do, you probably want to take this in the off time that you're not on SLU. And again, if you're also using an SS31 or a metabolic blend, which again, for the people that don't know, is 5-amino, MOTC, and NAD in one combination, which is, again, amazing for energy, probably really good for fat loss. I've never used it at a high dose enough for fat loss. I just use it for energy. You're going to want to use that, again, rotational. I think, just to say it, because Brian and I have talked about it, but haven't talked about it publicly, I think if you're using SLU for 8 weeks at high dose, you're picking either SS31 to run with it, and that would be Saturday, Sunday, SLU Monday through Friday, or even just taking SS31 every other day while you're taking SLU daily. And then rotating when you're off SLU, moving to like the metabolic blend, without it, always taking your urolithin A. And then obviously once we have our MitoCharge product, that'll replace urolithin A because there'll be a ton of it in there. There's going to be a lot of stuff in there Brian's putting in there, but it's going to be the best mitochondrial, call it repair product in the entire marketplace. We've already studied it. We've seen everything that's out there. There's a lot of companies that are selling MitoCharge type products. You got MitoPure. There's so many of them, right? But it's like the one that we're going to make is going to have a lot of newer stuff in it. And it's just going to be very bleeding edge, and it's not going to be super expensive. It's definitely going to be affordable for most people. It'll almost be like a product that you have to be on every month. You know what I mean? Depending on your cycle or what you're doing or how your protocol is being driven. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, obviously I'm leaving off the Jardiances, the metformins, the dihydroberberins for, insulin sensitivity improvement and blood glucose control. I'm always running at least 2 of those 3. And then, we didn't talk about anything for cognitive. If I have a cognitively demanding day, which I didn't use it today, but I would have normally, I would take BioMind before I do a podcast or before I have a really, really, like if I'm writing, which I'm going to be writing next week when I'm in Northern California, because I'm going to be on the Mind Pump podcast on Tuesday and I'm going to be finishing the book. I'll probably be taking BioMind every other day. And before, I also sometimes will rotate that with our other product, which is BioFlow, which, as you know, is tesofensine and magnesium threonate, which is also amazing to kind of create, BDNF and improve BDNF pathway production. So those are your 2. I don't think I'm missing anything else. I mean, I'm always on growth hormone. It's somewhere between 1.5 and 3 IUs in the morning. If I'm really desiring to build muscle, like kind of now with the Follistatin, I'm taking 3 IUs in the morning. I haven't used Slin in a long time, but if I was attempting to build muscle, like we were already talking about, I would definitely take Slin before I was actually working out. And obviously those pens are so easily found now in the marketplace. I remember back in the old days, you had to get a bottle of Humalog and lie about, my grandpa's a diabetic or something.
Yep.
Those days are over, but
please, he needs his insulin. He needs it immediately. You're in a stringer, veins are popping out.
I think that would be it for me. Again, so it's just basically high dose SLU, Reta, Follistatin, my testosterone, Either Jardiance and metformin combined or Jardiance and dihydroberberine. And then obviously my growth hormone in the morning. I mean, I'm always also taking desiccated thyroid. I take that AM and PM because when you're on testosterone, you really need to optimize your thyroid too. A lot of people don't do that enough. T3 is not what you want. You want T1, T2, T3, and T4, which is obviously coming from desiccated thyroid. There's other, products. I think we mentioned urolithin A, from a repair standpoint. And then obviously the PEPs. I'm always rotating either SS31 with the metabolic blend. And then, by the way, I didn't mention this, but when I go, like we just got back from Mexico, I'm taking melanotan 1 every morning, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm taking a microdose of melanotan before I go out in the sun in the morning, just for consciousness, and then also just for darkening my skin, so that I don't get any kind of issues with being in the sun in the really lower right north of the equator type of areas and stuff like that. But other than that, I mentioned the TB500 to take with the Follistatin. I think that would be added in there. That's obviously something new from our chemist, but that's probably the J. Campbell God Stack 2025 or 26.